On international news, questions about whether or not Britain should leave the European Union still linger after Thursday's historic vote. Some analysts say Britain may not actually pull out after a petition calling for a second referendum gained more than 3 million signatories. Prime Minister David Cameron, who plans to step down before October, says he won't take the formal steps to initiate an EU divorce. He believes it's the responsibility of his successor. Now, some politicians have suggested a parliamentary vote is needed because the referendum itself is not legally binding. European leaders are also divided over how swiftly the divorce talks should start. France is calling for haste, while German Chancellor Angela Merkel is urging patience. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker says proceedings should start immediately. Well, let's get you more on these latest developments coming out of the UK. We're now joined live by CCTV's Richard Bestek in London. Richard, of course, an all-important cabinet meeting taking place today. What's on the agenda?
Well, there can only be one show in town. The Cabinet has been meeting in the UK Prime Minister David Cameron's official residence at 10 Downing Street for more than an hour and a half now. The meeting does appear to be coming to a close as ministers leave. Not one of them is saying what they discussed around the table, but we can guess they were meeting in the midst of a constitutional, political and financial crisis, pretty much unprecedented in this country in peacetime. It followed an early morning statement from the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Britain's Finance Minister George Osborne, who made an appeal to the markets to keep calm. He was largely successful, although the decline in the FTSE 100, the measure of investment in Britain's businesses, continued its downward move. None of the volatile conditions of last Friday. The pound was also down against the dollar, but again, nothing like the situation on Friday when it fell off a cliff and made the biggest dive since 1985. Later in the day, the Prime Minister will go to the House of Commons and make a statement to Parliament explaining the situation they're in. But it is a difficult one because we have, against that backdrop, not just a financial crisis, pressure on the British government to begin the process of negotiating an exit, but a domestic political crisis to boot.
Well, absolutely. And that is the major question, Richard. When is this Article 50 going to be triggered? And of course, the other thing that everyone's wondering about is who is likely to lead that process?
Well, exactly, because we are in the process of a leadership election, and David Cameron has said he doesn't want to do any of the work on that. He says it should be the responsibility of the next Prime Minister. So we don't know who's going to be handling those delicate negotiations, deciding Britain's relationship after more than 4 decades inside the European Union, what that relationship will look like once it's out. We have no idea. The fact that we might be handing over power, or we certainly will be handing over power from an elected Prime Minister, David Cameron, who came into office at the last election with a full majority, the fact that he will then be handing on to the winner of the leadership of the ruling Conservative Party without a general election suggests there will be at some stage a snap election called. And it's not just the government which appears to commentators here in Britain to be leaderless. The opposition Labour Party is also in the throes of a crisis with 15 members of the front bench, those who speak on behalf of the party on given subjects in Parliament, have resigned because they all say that they no longer have any faith in their leader, Jeremy Corbyn. They're calling for him to resign. So at a time when Britain needs all its wits about it to negotiate these delicate negotiations, out of the European Union, it is simultaneously looking for leaders for both its major parties. It is an unprecedented political crisis in peacetime here in Britain.
Indeed. Well, thanks very much for that update. Richard Bestick, live for us in London, following those latest developments there in the United Kingdom.